Okay, today I'm talking about Tevillas Keilim. Basic rule of Tevillas Keilim is anything that's made from metal or glass, which is made for the preparation or the consumption of food, that a Jewish person gets, that what originally had belonged to someone who's not Jewish, needs to have Tevillas Keilim. Okay, that's the general rule. We're going to be talking about a whole group of items, excuse me, where there's a question, some kind of a question as to whether they do or don't need tefillah. Okay. Now today we're in the Hashgachah Practicum world. So today it's going to be everything's going to be shortened with less of the details. And what I'm going to talk about are these are the topics I'm going to talk about, and the chapters you could find them in the Sefer. So the whole one is 3, 4, 5, 7 or 8 topics, and the different chapters we could find them if you want to look them up. So I'll do a little bit of detail on it, but not very much, and surely not with the comments to it. So you want to see more, that's where you got to go. Okay, so our first topic is China and Teflon. Okay, now China and Teflon have something in common. That is, there's more than one layer to what it's made out of. One layer needs tefillah, and one layer does not need tefillah. In China, the base material is cheres. You can pick one up with your phone soon. You can see it yourself. If you look really carefully sideways, you look at at the edges, that the base material is cheres, that does not need tefillah, and it has a coating which is glass, which does need tefillah. Okay, that's one example. And the opposite example is Teflon. That Teflon, the base material is metal, which needs tefillah, but the coating is a man-made material. It's a Teflon or some kind of a coating, and that inherently would not need tefillah. Okay, so the question is, does this thing need tefillah? It doesn't need tefillah. It has 2 different layers on it. Okay, one does and one doesn't. In fact, there's a Gemara about it. But the question depends on many different factors that we're actually not going to talk about. And they are, what the Gemara calls it, should we go Tchilasoya Basasoifoi? Should we say Hakol Chachar Maimed? Should we say, certain coatings are not really there, they're not functional, they're just linoi. A coating, maybe it depends if the coating's on one side or on 2 sides. Maybe it depends on which coatings touch the food. Maybe it depends how thick the coatings are. Maybe when we look in the Practicum and they talk about coatings, they weren't talking about the same as us. It's a whole different world. Okay, there's a lot to discuss about that. It was in chapter 7. Lots to talk about that. So we're not going to talk about that. But we're not going to take all those details. But based on all these different things, most people assume, including Cersei, Rebelsky thought like that, Rabbi Forrest, that you should do tefillah for China, but tefillah without a bracha. Okay, that's for China. Most people assume, and that's what Cersei would tell you, and that's what we do, that it needs tefillah, but tefillah without a bracha. About Teflon, it's a little not so clear. Okay, what to do with things that are made for Teflon is not so clear. The 2 more extreme positions, there's 3 possibilities. The 2 more extreme ones are easier to justify. Either you should say that it should be completely do tefillah with a bracha, 100% regular tefillah with a bracha, or the opposite, that no tefillah is required. Those are 2 positions that are easier to justify. But in Lamaisa, the thing that makes the most sense is probably the compromise, which happens a lot in Tevillas Keilim, which is do tefillah without a bracha. Okay, it's for whatever reason. Just because the way tefillah works is that why not do tefillah and why make a bracha? So in lots of cases when you end up being unsure or not clear what you're supposed to do, the answer is tefillah without a bracha. Okay. Now the more simple case in both of these, China and Teflon, another layered material is something called porcelain enamel. I don't have time. I'm not here on my screen. A porcelain enamel, particularly see it in pots. Those are the kind of pots that they look like pots. They have like a bright color. They're blue or green or yellow, all different kinds of colors that they are to them. And the reason why they have these colors, the reason why what they are is, the term porcelain enamel means steel, which is coated with glass. It's not just coated with glass. It's not like they just put a layer onto it like out of China. They actually put it back into the film with the glass on it, and it fuses together to give it new properties. Okay, like it doesn't smash. If you hit it with a hammer, it won't break like glass would break. It has all kinds of special properties that neither the steel or the glass had before, and it's called porcelain enamel. And they make that white or blue or red, all kinds of interesting colors. So regular porcelain, not porcelain. The word regular porcelain means cheres. It's just a version of cheres. Okay, but now sometimes they use the word porcelain when they really mean porcelain enamel. Like you go into the city buying a porcelain pot. It's not a porcelain pot. It's a porcelain enamel pot. But the word porcelain is a kind of cheres. But porcelain enamels is a made-up term, and it refers to these kind of materials, like the inside of your oven is made of porcelain enamel also.
Porcelain enamel is not porcelain with enamel. It's something else.
No, it's right. Porcelain, those two words separately both mean cheres, but porcelain enamel is a special material. It's like the top of your stove top, or the inside of your oven is made out of it also.
What do you think both separately is cheres?
Enamel is cheres, and porcelain is cheres. If each of those things gets them. But it's a made-up term that puts them together. They're called porcelain enamel. So porcelain enamel is, over here, it's easy to decide whether it needs tevilah, because both layers need tevilah, okay? The metal and the glass, both of them need tevilah. So, the metal structure you have it, unless sometimes the porcelain enamel pots have Teflon on the inside, then you're back to the Teflon question. But the etzem, porcelain enamel, is the easiest of these things we're talking about. It has many layers, it has 2 layers, but both layers are chayiv in tevilah. Okay. Next, disposable pans, okay? Disposable pans. There, guess what? Again, 3 opinions about what to do with disposable pans. The most straightforward one is what Rabbi Yashav says, or Rabbi Hashgachah said, which was you need tevilah. It's a pot. It's made out of metal. It's a metal. A little question whether aluminum needs tevilah, but we assume that it does. It's metal. It's used for cooking. You put the food right into it. So the most straightforward position is that, of course, it needs tevilah. Well, why not? What's so different about it? Okay. The opposite extreme is from Daimais in Minchas Yitzchak, who says in Hilchos Tumah v'Taira, things that are disposable don't count as kelim. And since he holds, and there are many who hold, that the halachas of Tumah v'Taira and the halachas of Tevillas Keilim are connected to each other, meaning things that are not kelim for Tumah v'Taira are also not kelim for Tevillas Keilim. So he says it's not a kli. In Hilchos Tumah v'Taira, this would not be considered a kli. So therefore, in Hilchos Tevillas Keilim, it's not a kli either. If it's not a kli, it doesn't be toveil because it's not a kli. So he says you don't have to toveil it at all. Okay, so again, the initial assumption would be everyone would guess, like Rabbi Yashav says or Hashgachah says, it's a kli. And the opposite is also very understandable, which is it's not a kli altogether. In Hilchos Tumah v'Taira, it's not a kli. So for Tevillas Keilim, it's not a kli either. Okay, the third one is the one that's the hardest to understand, and that says if you're going to use it once, then you don't have to toveil it. But if you use it a bunch of times, then if you plan to use it a bunch of times, then you do have to toveil it. That shita, I heard it from a few different people, all Talmidim of Rav Moshe, who all said it from Rav Moshe. Okay, Rav Heinemann, Rav First, Rav Bluth, all said it in the name of Rav Moshe. That Moshe told them that it depends on what you do. Okay, it's hard to understand what that means. Somehow the person's decision whether I'm going to use it many times or a few times makes it yes disposable or not disposable. Somehow that because when I bought it, it's a disposable kli. It's not a kli. In Dinei Tumah v'Taira, it's not a kli. So now, if I change my mind, now I make it into a kli. So at the most you're going to say is, so I made it into a kli, as we're going to hear a story about that later. I made it into a kli. So it wasn't I bought it from a guy, a piece of metal. What I bought from the guy was not a kli. So now the fact that I changed my mind, how could my changing my mind make a difference anyhow? So there's people said things like maybe it's like Breira, it's decided that some of them are going to be used many times, all kinds of things like that. And what's harder to understand is Rav Moshe in the tshuva is a tshuva where he says that doesn't need to have tevilah. Okay, so most people, seriously for sure, and I believe most people do what Daimai says, which is they say you don't need to toveil them at all. Again, there are people who follow this other shita, which is depending how many times you're going to use it. But we tell people, and I think that's, in my mind, that's what most people do, is that they don't toveil them at all. Metal. Okay. Next, electrical devices. Okay. Now, the people who make electrical devices will tell you that you should not put them into water. Don't submerge them into water. Okay. And all kinds of technical reasons why. It's actually worthwhile to know them, but we're not going to talk about them today. There are technical reasons why that's correct, but it's going to ruin the kli. And of course, maybe the people who buy them don't want to toveil them for the same reason. They're not evil. They just don't want to. The manufacturer says if you put it into water, you're going to ruin it, so they don't want to ruin it. So there's two thoughts as to given why you shouldn't have to toveil them. Okay, the first one was they said is maybe this is considered a kli that's costly לשמש and הקרקע, and a kli that's costly לשמש and הקרקע is not makabel tumah, and therefore it's not chayav to be touched. What does that mean? That's a two-step. This costly לשמש and הקרקע is a two-step point. One is anything that's costly לשמש and הקרקע is not makabel tumah. Things that are meant to be used with the ground are not makabel tumah. And if we compare Tevillas Keilim to Tumah B'Taira, then we say just like it's not Makabel Tumah, so it's not Chayim Tevillas Keilim. That's step one. Step two is to say that since it's electrical, therefore it's automatically also Shamash Makarka because you have to plug it in. You can't use it not attached to the ground. Okay, so the first step is to say that also Shamash Makarka makes a difference for Tevillas Keilim, and then the second step is to say things have to be plugged in or automatically also Shamash Makarka because there's no other way to use it unless you plug it into the ground. Okay, so Chacham speaks about it. Chacham says this rule of also Shamash Makarka. That rule that Asui Shamash Karka only means is if it's a thing that has absolutely no functionality unless it's attached to the ground. But if it has some kind of functionality, even if it's not the ikar thing that you do with it, if it has some kind of a functionality to it, then that's not considered Asui Shamash Karka. Asui Shamash Karka means there's nothing to do with it if you don't have it attached to the ground. So let's say you have an electric pot, okay, an electric pot. And the only way you work it is it's not a pot you put onto the fire. A pot you have to plug in to make it work. The only way to make it work is you plug it in. That's true, but that's the ikar kavanah. But you can do other things with that. Otherwise, you can keep your food into it. You know, there are things you could do with it that are not imakarka, and therefore, Chacham says those things that doesn't count. That doesn't count to be called asur shamash makarka, even if it's tumah b'tayra. From a different angle, the one who's most famous for suggesting that you don't have to toveil Keilim because they're also electrical things because they're also shamash makarka is Chalkus Yaakov. He's the one who's most famous for having proposed such a shita. And if you look in his tshuvas, he actually says the only time I'm saying this possibility is for an immersion heater. Okay, that's his example. An immersion heater is something you plug into the wall, and the other end there's a coil of like metal, and you stick it into water, and it boils up the water. He says the immersion heater has absolutely no use if it's not attached to the ground. There's nothing to do with this thing. It's just a piece of metal. He says, but if it would be something else, like a pot or a kettle or something like that, so even though you're supposed to plug it in, this thing is meant to be attached to the ground. But it has some use when it's not attached to the ground, like the Chacham said. And other uses, so he says, that's for sure not also Shamash Makarka. So maybe he could be maybe he would be mako by a toaster. Okay, what could he do with the toaster except for plug it into the ground? Okay, and in his case, his specific case is an immersion heater. But to say that to even the ones who want to be mako like this have a very limited scope of cases that it is, and Ramosha and Diane Weiss both say that it's not true. They indirectly say it, and Ravazin specifically talks about this shita that it should be asur shamash makarka, and they don't buy it. Okay, they don't. This is not so accepted to think that electrical devices should be asur shamash makarka. And again, even the ones who would think that it is only for very specific cases, not for the bulk of electrical things. It's not going to work for. Okay, but there's a second reason, which many people do agree with. In fact, it's the serious position, and that's like this. It's based on something that is in, Shlomo Zalman says, Rabbi Schwartz from Shachta said the same basic idea, but it comes from Shlomo Zalman like this. The Ramah says that if you have a kli which is owned b'shutfis of a yid and a goy, you don't have to toveil it. Okay, you could use it without toveling it. So most people who look at that din think that the din means is since it's owned by a yid and a goy, it's not chayv tefillah. If it's not chayv tefillah, so I can use it without toveling it. It's like nothing. It's just not something that's not chayv tefillah. The Shach says that's not Shach. It's not that it's not. It really is chayv tefillah because a yid owns it. If a yid owns it, it's chayv tefillah. He says, but what's going to happen is every time you toveil it, you're chayv tefillah again. As soon as you pull it out of the mikvah, it's chayv again because a goy has a chelik in it. And the fact that you're using the kli that not came from the goy, sorted to the yid, it's chayv tefillah again. So it's physically impossible because every time you're going to toveil it, as soon as you pull it out of the water, it's chayv tefillah again. So the Shach says, so it's not that it's not chayv tefillah, it's just not possible to do tefillah. That's what the Shach says. So now the question on that is that, okay, so it's not possible to do tefillah. So why do I use it? It's chayv, you're saying it's chayv in tefillah. Again, everybody, when you read the din, you assume it means it's not chayv in tefillah. He says, no, it's chayv in tefillah. If it's chayv in tefillah, so why do I use it? So to that, Shlomo Zalman says, what it means is like this. The chiyuv to toveil things is a mitzvah midaraisa, to toveil Keilim. And this has that chiyuv deraisa. But there's an issur d'Rabbanan that if you have a kli that's chayv in tefillah, you can't use it until you do Tevillas Keilim. That's an issur d'Rabbanan. That's not an issur midaraisa. That's issur d'Rabbanan. It's like eating. If you didn't do kisi adam, there's nothing. You're supposed to. You have a mitzvah to do kisi adam. If you don't do the mitzvah, you're a bad boy. But there's nothing to do with it. Over here, there's an issur d'Rabbanan. Don't use it. Why the Chacham made that rule? Because they want to encourage people to do Tevillas Keilim. They say don't use it. You can't use it until you do Tevillas Keilim. That issur d'Rabbanan only makes sense when it's physically possible. when it's not possible to do Tevillas Keilim, Chazal are not going to impose on you this punishment and say, you can't use your Kli until you do Tevillas Keilim. But I can't do Tevillas Keilim. It's not possible. If I can't do it, if I can't do it, so why should we bother punishing you and telling you can't do it? So they let you off the hook. So the Chiyuv D'Oraisa is, you're like an onus on the D'Oraisa. You can't do the Mitzvah D'Oraisa. And the Issa D'Rabbanan to use it doesn't apply to you because you're not possible. There's no way for you to do it.
Doesn't the Mitzvah D'Oraisa only become active if I use it? If I have a Kli that I don't use, I have a Kli with the Mitzvah D'Oraisa also does.
So you're saying is if I have a cup, it's not Chayv and Tefillah until I'm about to drink, then I quickly dunk it into the mikvah. That's
it's like I've read Adventist saying if someone's a mirror, it says like it's a
sort of.
No, it's a Kli that I plan to use. I have to toveil it, knowing that I'm going to use it in a minute from now. I have to toveil it.
Let's say guy used it. He planned to use it and didn't use it. He didn't use it in the end. He's over anything? He was over the mitzvah.
I don't know. I guess not. I guess he wasn't over on anything because he never came to the mitzvah using it. But it's like saying, well, I'm gonna. I don't know how to explain it.
So I think that's correct. So really, it's still you can still say that there's an isser, there's a law that upon on using it. But on the D'Oraisa end, it's still I'm a kind of mevatel the mitzvah if I use it, right? So there is an element of D'Oraisa to using it.
I'm being mevatel the mitzvah D'Oraisa, but on that I'm an onus on that. There's nothing I can do about the issa D'Oraisa. Nothing. I can't toveil it. It's not possible because as soon as I dunk it in, I'm going to have to toveil it again. That's the shachs coming from that side. I can't do the mitzvah D'Oraisa. So you can't hold me responsible for not doing the mitzvah D'Oraisa. I can't do it. Okay, I'm in jail. I don't have a lulav. So I can't do it. You can't hold me responsible.
That's right. I mean, it's right that if you're honest and putting on tzitzis, I can't put on tzitzis. You're not putting that bench on campus. It's 100% good about bench on campus. I'm honest on tzitzis. There's no din. I gotta not wear it.
That's in fact the din. Okay. So now that's what the shach says. Shom Zalman says that explains what the shach means about a kli that has a shutfis. And then he says, so mamela, when we have an electrical kli, it's the same thing. If I physically can't be toveil it, again, because if I'm going to toveil it, I'm not going to have a kli. It's not going to work anymore. If I physically can't toveil it, so then the mitzvah D'Oraisa, I'm an onus on. I can't do the mitzvah D'Oraisa. Issa D'Rabbanan, don't use it until you toveil it. You say, what do you want from it? What do you want? Why the Chacham impose that upon me? Just like by the shutfis, they wouldn't impose that upon me and say you can't use it because I wouldn't be able to do it anyhow. Okay, we're comparing this case of an electrical item to the case of a kli that has a shutfis of yidden goy. In both, I can't do the mitzvah D'Oraisa, and so we say so then the issa D'Rabbanan to use the kli without tefillah is also falls off. There's no issa D'Rabbanan either.
Well, I came late, but why can't you be toveil electrical kli?
Because physically, it's going to break.
Like a Keurig you're talking about?
A machine, whatever the device is that's going to break.
I mean, people do it all the time.
Well, that's a simple.
I theory now. We're talking about electrical ones that can't be broken. Now, so some people. So what I was going to conclude is that. So to summarize where we are and to sort of conclude this is, also Yishamash from Akarka, most people don't buy as a reason to not be mechayiv these things in tefillah. But this reason is more mekubal. But there's different variations. Rabbi Schwartz says, if it's electrical, automatically don't toveil it. Okay, if you call up the CRC, you call up the phone, and they say, I have something electrical, before you get the words out of your mouth, you don't have to toveil it. Doesn't make a difference what it is. Okay, and some people take a little bit more nuanced approach, and they say let's look at the thing. Some of the things that are electrical, the manufacturer says don't put into water, but it's okay, and you let it just dry out for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, and it'll be perfectly fine. As you mentioned, your
immersion blender, the CRC saying off the table.
What do you think?
Immersion blender, a heater, you off the table.
An immersion
heater.
So you say,
anything electrical, I mean, you gotta look at something totally harmless.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
You have to toveil the plug too.
Of course. Yeah, because you have to toveil the whole cleat. When you toveil, you have to toveil the whole cleat.
Right.
What's the problem? There's no, nothing's going to happen to it. Right. So you're actually hitting a most extreme example. But there are cases in the middle that even also where plenty of people have toveiled things. My family's gone through, I don't know how many sandwich makers, and we've toveiled them. No, they last for a very long time. We dry them out for a couple of weeks, and they last long enough. If they would break, they wouldn't make it at all. Okay. Let's do one more thing, and then you'll tell me if I should stop or finish. We'll go on from there. Okay.
Is that a chiddush that he's saying, or that's a better pasuk?
He's explaining the shach. The chiddush. No.
We find other people
the chiddush.
There's like an isser midaraisa to use the kli. But everybody agrees that the Isser is only the
I can't say no, but there are people who think that it's an Issa D'Oraisa to use the Kli also. That's not Mukaval either. But when he said that it's an Issa D'Rabbanan, that's pretty straight understood also. The Shach is the main Chiddush, which is the Pshat in the Shutfis is like this instead of like that. Once after that, the other part is goes more smoothly. I mean, that's okay. Now, talk about containers of packaged goods. Okay, right now I'm looking at it from the side of me, consumer. Okay, I buy a bottle, a jar of pickles, or a can of tuna, or a bottle of wine, and so it's glass or metal, and it's chayv and tefillah. Now it belongs to me. It belongs to a guy. I bought, I don't know, whatever, Nathan's pickles. Okay, it belonged to a guy, and the jar belonged to a guy, and now I buy it and I take it to my house. Now I bought a glass jar from a guy. So the question is, why am I chayv and tefillah now? Okay, so there's two reasons given why I'm not mechuyev to tefillah. Why I could take all the pickles and eat them and not be chayv and tefillah or drink the wine. And the first is from a Maral Tiskim, who said that in fact you're chayv to tefillah. You are mechuyev to tefillah. He says, but you can't tefillah it when the food is in it. Obviously, there's food inside of it. You can't tefillah it, so you have to get the food out. He says, there's no chiyuv to get the food out very quickly. Take your time. So if there's 10 pickles in the jar, or there's I don't know how many 750 milliliters of wine, take your time getting it out. When you get it all out, now if you want to put something into it, you have to tefillah it. He says, but take your time. So you can empty it slowly. I mean, take as much as you want to out of it, and if after you finish that you want to use it for food, go for it. Then go tefillah it. That's no problem. Okay.
So then this is also relying on the same svara that I have no chiyuv to tefillah it if I'm honest.
No,
Why don't I have a chiyuv to tefillah it while there's food in it?
There's food in here now,
And so you have a jar right now that is being used, which is not being tabled.
which has not been titled. Okay.
Why do you have a chiyuv to table it right now?
So what do
The
I?
answer is that it's taking me a few weeks till I get it back.
Okay, that's interesting way of looking at it. Other interesting way of looking at it.
I understand. I hear his question. I mean, what? I'm using the bottle of wine like I'm going to use it in the future. I'm going to put stuff in it. Right? It's like, why am I lying?
Right now.
Why you
So what do you want me to do? So you tell me to take everything out and then go type it.
Well, I don't want you to use it. You can't use it.
You're
You're using it now.
Where you use it.
How am I using it? Because I'm holding my wine is sitting in the bottle.
Stuff in it, pouring from it. I don't know. However, I'm going to use it in the future. You tell me you have to divulge.
So what do you want me? So what do you want me to do? So quickly get all the wine out of it.
I want you not to use it.
So I should just leave it on the shelf? Just leave it on the shelf?
Yeah.
Well, whatever it is.
You can use it.
But if it sits on the shelf with all the wine in it, I'm not going to be toveil either. So you say to me, take the wine out and then go toveil it. So I said, okay, I'll take the wine out of it.
Bring it back forth to the table, take wine out,
I might
not be able to pour stuff back.
Why don't you have a chiyuv to
It might not be able to pour stuff back.
Correct. According to our this case, you should not pour stuff back.
There's nobody will ever remember that. So then you have to ask it. No, that's exactly. You didn't have to ask it. The more would ask it. No, seriously.
I have a kli right now,
Yes.
right? And you said before that when you have a kli, you have a chiyuv to be tabled.
Yes.
Okay, so why don't I have a chiyuv to be tabled right now? Friday at whatever time it is.
So I should go with the wine inside of it?
Wait. Do I have a chiyuv to be tabled?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So what are you going to tell me? That I can't because there's food.
There's food inside it.
Okay, so then you have to eat out of the food. So you can tell me, so it's an anus. And
Okay.
I'm
Interesting way. Okay.
Is it an anus?
Interesting way of looking. No, because here I'm not such an anus. I can take the food out. Of course I can take it out. I'm not such an anus. Interesting. Okay, I didn't hear it like that, but I hear it. And that's what he's saying is that I can just take it. I don't have to do it quickly. The mitzvah is do it
Like I said, you
quickly.
can put stuff back in.
Yes, so he would say is you can't put things back into it. So you say that's crazy. How are you letting people take food into their house? And this jar, you only take things out, it's on a one-way street. Okay. Now, Ramosha has this is interesting. I never looked like that. I thought it was very straightforward. Okay, but Ramosha has a different reason. He says, why not chayv in tefillah? He says this, Ramosha can say, you chayv in tefillah?
Nobody says it's disposable anyway, right? Nobody used that header. And it's disposable. Everybody throws out these jars.
You'll hear what I'm going to say in 1 second, and then you'll tell me if you think that fits into disposable, okay? Ramesh says something along the lines of, he doesn't say disposable, he says something, a variation of that. If I remember, his riot comes from, I don't remember now.
Chavetz from
Ma'aser yeah. And he says I'm saying not from another unexpected location. And that is, he said like this. He says you're only chayiv in tefillah for something that's food, something that's going to be used for eating and for food, like a kli that's meant for food. Like I have a jar that I put food into that I'm chayiv to tefillah. He says, but this is not considered a food utensil. This is a packaging material, just a way for them to get the wine from their factory to your house, just a packaging material to get from there to there. And packaging materials are not kelim. Those are not things that are chayiv. Okay, and the Raya, I think it was from Meister Sheni. This is not considered a food. This is not a food item. It's just sort of like tuffle to the food. It's not a kli. It's not a kli.
It's a food, actually.
What'd you say?
It's not a kli. It's a food.
Correct. So it's not like a plate that I eat on. It's like you said. It's a piece of food. It's a packaging material, and it's not chayiv tefillah. He says then if I take this jar of pickles and I decide I want to put one back in, I take my bottle of wine, I want to pour some back into it. He says, so now I'm using it as a kli. I'm not using it as a packaging material anymore. He says, so who made it into a kli? The Yid made it into a kli. He took a guy's piece of glass that was not a kli, and he fashioned it into a kli. He didn't do anything physical to make that change. It was just a mindset. But he took something that was not a kli. He turned the thing into a kli. So the Yid made it. So what's the din? What's the din if a Yid makes a kli? So the Yid makes a kli. It's not chayiv tefillah.
So you have to go to the budget and reuse it. You can
Right.
Totally empty it out.
100%. When you fit, you can empty that and you could fill up with whatever you want.
Your designation is what's making it into a kli.
Right. Well, the main part he's saying is, the main thing he's saying is that it's not a kli coming to your house. It's not a kli coming to your house. What happens if I decide to put things into it? So he says, okay, so then you made it into a kli. That's like a side point. The main point is, what comes into your house is not chayiv Tevillas Keilim altogether. It's not like normal discount, which is it's chayiv, but you have time to do it. It's not chayiv Tevillas Keilim altogether. So it's not chayiv Tevillas Keilim.
So much hold it's not a couple to at that stage.
I have no idea if it's a couple tuma. We're in the wrong.
No, but those are see that's connected. We have these right.
Right, that's correct.
That's connected.
That should be totally that. I don't remember if he talks about it, and I for sure don't know the answer. Okay. Okay. Now there's a so Rav Moshe, the way we're saying it, Rav Moshe is the makel more than all this. Maldiskin says it's chayiv Tevillas Keilim, but you have time till you do it. And Rav Moshe is the makel to say it's not even chayiv Tevillas Keilim. Okay, with the nafkamina of could you put food back into it? Okay, Rav Moshe is the makel to say it's not even chayiv Tevillas Keilim. Okay, so there's a possibility, I'm not 100% sure, of a case where Moshe's point will be l'chumra. Okay, I don't know that they don't agree with each other, these two. Each one has their own reason, but Moshe's reason would be l'kula, would be a chumra. Okay, and that I think is the case of the disposable spice grinders like we have here. Okay, now the disposable spice grinders have two different parts to their shilah. Okay, one is like this one, the container is glass. Okay, so the container when it needs tefillah is like our old shilah we had. Maybe this can say I'm allowed to empty out as water clothes I want to, or much it's just a packaging deal. Okay. But the second part of the shayla to them, most of them are not glass. The second part of the shayla is that for some of them, the grinding mechanism is metal. Okay, it's not going to be glass. Sometimes the grinding mechanism is metal. Almost never. It's very rare. We poked around a lot of them. It's pretty rare. But if the grinding mechanism would be metal, so then according to Maral Diskin, you still don't have to type it because he says I'm allowed to empty it out. Empty it slowly until I eventually get it all out.
Are you able to remove that mechanism and take it by itself?
It depends on the device. Well, you could for sure type it once you got rid of all the spices. Once you finish all the spices in it, you for sure could type it. Some of them you could open them up.
Even the metal discing, why don't you be trying to unscrew the top and be type of...
Oh, okay. Depends. Some of them you could these are so easy. You just unscrew the top. Other ones you have to put into water to get it. It's not meant because they don't want you to refill it. They want you to buy another one. But if you go to YouTube, you'll find out how you can open them up and refill them, which we did. But for those, you have to empty it out first. So you have to get it to water first. It's all patchka right to do it. Okay? So according to all this, you would be off the hook. You'd be okay. But according to Rav Moshe saying is the thing is not a kli, and you're the one who made it into a kli. Okay? It's harder to justify that with a spice grinder that's built for you. It's not meant just to get it to your house. They built into this metal, again, this one is not metal, they built in this metal grinder for you to grind within your house to make the food ready to eat. So it's harder to say in that case, they just meant that as a packaging material. It's not a kli. It's hard to say that because it is a kli. This part, the bottom, actually, the bottom part is just a packaging material. But the top part, the grinding part of it, is a grinder. That's what I told you, a grinder attached to a packaging material. Okay, so Rav Moshe's case, according to Rav Moshe's logic, would be, in this case, seemingly, it would be a chumrah. That you would not be allowed to say is, you're not going to say is, this is not chayiv tefillah. I'm not made into a kli. No, they sold you this is the packaging material. That's not chayiv tefillah. But this, if it was metal, this is chayiv. They sold you a grinder stuck on top of your thing. So according to what to think that what it is. Okay, so I was going to talk about. I'm going to stop here because till now we talked about all the things having to do with Tevillas Keilim, having to do with consumers. Okay? The next half, which we're not going to have time for, I see we're not having time for, is from the businesses and manufacturers, if they have reasons if they would potentially be chayav in Tevillas Keilim. Okay, we'll say that, we'll do that next time.